Imagine how big my eyes are on that massive wall-sized screen that people are watching us on right now.
From Dallas, Texas, this is Anarchast.
Greetings, freedom lovers. Greetings, Anarchapulco attendees. Welcome back to this special edition of Anarchast, your home for anarchy on the internet. I will be Patrick Smith. For the next 2 hours, I bring you two awesome interviews with two people that are crazy smart. The first one that we're going to talk with today, her name is Lisa Manfredi. Lisa is a personal friend of mine. She might be one of the smartest, most successful business women that I know in my life, and so I am super psyched to bring this show to you today. Lisa Manfredi has a background in neuroscience and sales. Good thing she's smarter than I am able to talk. She is fascinated by how all things connect. She worked in corporate for 10 years and left to pursue a new path of freedom. Lisa wants to add context to people's lives to afford them financial freedom by giving them the resilience they need to hold fast and not be bounced around by life circumstances. So she started wealthbattle.com to help people win the war on wealth in their life. Lisa, welcome to the show. It is great to have you.
Patrick, awesome to be here.
Cool. I mean, I think I've been planning inside my own head to have you on for like a year now. So this is a perfect time, perfect excuse. This whole show today, this 2 hours for everyone watching, is going to be about money. If you're into crypto, catch the second hour at 6 o'clock. We're going to be talking about crypto and Bitcoin and the problems with its DNA that it might not be living up to. It's going to be interesting. This here right now, we're going to talk about fiat Fed bucks, also known as US dollars, right? Lisa, what do you mean by wealth battle? What do you mean by war on wealth?
I think it's interesting that a lot of freedom-minded people are asking questions about all kinds of things in life. And for some reason, they're not necessarily asking questions about money. How do we operate in this world that we're living in? Some people reject it completely, which makes it hard to do anything with people or to actually operate inside the system. So what do we do? Knowing what we know, how do we operate inside the system and spread our wings so that we have more resiliency no matter what happens around us? We can't predict what's going to happen. We don't have any control over much of it. So what's actually possible?
Okay, and in what ways, this might be an obvious question, but it bears setting the foundation for the conversation. In what ways are we not in control?
Well, somebody's printing money, and it's not me. Is it you?
Unfortunately, no.
Damn it. I was hoping. Fingers crossed.
I'll let you know if I get that going.
So, yeah, there's a lot. Thank you. Thank you. There's a lot going on that we can't control, the interest rates, the amount of money, the debt that's out there. And so there are a lot of tools that are given to the common masses, things that we're told to do, ways to operate in the system. And many of us just do that. We just do what we're told. And there's actually a lot more possible. But if we're not looking and we're not asking the questions, then there's somebody controlling us always. So really what I want to do is just have that conversation. How can we make ourselves more resilient?
And usually when I have this conversation, because Lord knows there is a very long list of people that have contacted me over the 7 or 8 years that I've been doing YouTube content, asking to talk about their scheme for how to avoid paying taxes, for how to have more control, for how to exit the system financially. And, you know, there are some non-grifters out there, and there are some valid points to be made by a lot of the people that have contacted me. I'm not saying they're all grifters or whatever. I'm saying that there are some. And so, you know, you have to be cautious, and you have to take your advice carefully and with a reasoned, cautious mind. And I initially heard you. It wasn't so much a sales pitch to me when you first told me about it. It was you describing what you've been doing for years with your wealth that you have amassed from your successes multiple entrepreneurial successes, I believe, in business and real estate and things like that. And so you were just saying, hey, this is what I do. If you have some wealth from your successes in business, Patrick, you know, you might want to look into it, something like that. And so I heard you out. It seemed eerily plausible. It seemed really practical and functional and not crazy. And so I think this is going to make for a really informative show. I would like to have you I wish I could just go back in time and have you walk and like play that conversation that we had, you know, a year and a half ago or what. I think we were at Anarchapulco, actually, when we had that first conversation. It was 2 years ago, maybe?
It was either that or it was game night
Okay.
at Friendsgiving.
Right. Okay. So
I'm not sure.
So what's the overview? Like, give me the 10,000 foot and then we'll back up and just go piece by piece.
Well, so I'm still telling my very biased story. So this is what has worked for me. I understand it's not necessarily going to resonate with everybody, but I've played this out and I never intended to like talk about this to many people. I just did it for myself. So I worked a corporate job and I had to allocate money to my 401k and to my health insurance and to my all of the things. And then I kept whatever there was to take home. And then they would ask me things like, well, hey, what election do you want to make for your 401k? And I really had no idea what they were talking about, like zero idea. And I'd call my dad. And that's kind of insane because my dad is not me and he's not going to be around forever. And I don't necessarily agree with everything that he's done. So what's actually possible for me? So I started researching it. This all came from my brother. So my brother really woke me up to many things in life. But I went down the rabbit hole of like, how does this banking system work? How does any of this stuff work? What's actually possible here? And through that, I learned how the banks make money and how wealthy people make money and how all of the people were making money. And I was not one of those people. And I wanted to be one of those people. So I wanted access to the funds that had been tied up for a really long time. That was my 401k. That was my money, but I didn't have access to it. I wanted that. In order to do that, I had to quit my job. So I did. I quit my job. I cashed out my 401k. I paid the taxes, the taxes on the penalty, and I got control over my money. And then I had to figure out, okay, well, what's the right plan here? And so I started learning about banking myself. How do I build my own bank? And that's exactly what I did. I built my own bank and I just implemented that strategy in my own life. It has worked really well for me over the course of years. I kept talking to freedom-minded people and getting the same message that people were struggling and they didn't know what to do. And I started just saying, well, hey, this is what I did. This has given me financial freedom. I actually can live my life the way that I want. I don't have rulers in terms of employers. And my money isn't dead to me. It's available to me right now. So,
and it's
that's kind of where
what are the is it tax sheltered in any way, or how does that work? Well, I guess let's back up. This is a good point. Like, start at the beginning. Like, where have you put your wealth that is both, you know, saved in your bank account, your own bank account that you created for yourself, where you also still have access to it?
So I looked for a vehicle that wealthy people were using. And wealthy people are interesting. They have a lot of money. Generally, the money was made generations ago. There's still inflation happening. How is it these families still have a ton of money? And what are rich people doing? What are banks doing? What are corporations doing? That's what I want to do. And they often are putting their money in life insurance. So a very specific type of life insurance, but life insurance is not considered an investment vehicle. Life insurance is for the benefit of the beneficiary. So you earn tax-free interest and dividends because it's a mutual company. So you can earn these tax-free interest and dividends, but the kicker is it's your money. It's still available to you. It's still liquid. So you could take that money out, loan it to yourself. The money is actually coming from the insurance company. So you're using the money, hopefully on something that will cash flow. And your money is still sitting in the account earning tax-free interest and dividends. So your money is doing multiple things for you at once.
So I was raised, and I just want to raise the same objection that I raised, I think, originally in our conversation. The first the moment, and I don't know where this came from. At some point, it feels like since birth, I've been raised to watch out for whole life insurance scams. And so as soon as I heard you start talking about life insurance, I got worried that, oh my goodness, this is what this is, right? Is that what this is?
Yeah.
And why not? Why, what's different about what you're talking about rather than just the normal whole life insurance plan?
Well, I mean, I would hope it's not a life insurance scam because that'd be really crazy. But no, it is a form of whole life insurance, but it's made to maximize your cash value. So this is something that we designed specifically to maximize your cash value. You're minimizing the piece that is held back from you, the piece that actually is the thing that pays high commissions, that supports the insurance company. So it's designed in a way that most insurance agents who are uninformed or are looking for a very large commission are not going to design it. They're going to design it to give you insurance. You call for insurance, they give you insurance. I like the idea that this is insurance because now it's going to be, I'm actually securing my loans. I'm actually out of the IRS's view because the IRS sees this as an insurance product, not as an investment. So there's tons and tons of benefits here, but it is a form of whole life insurance.
Okay, but it's not anything. It's not the way you configure it is very, very non-standard. You can configure a life insurance policy to function as a bank for yourself that pays interest, right?
Absolutely, tax-free interest and dividends.
And the big red flag that you always look for when people are selling like whole life insurance is those monthly premiums. Whereas like, you sign up for this whole life thing, it looks all great, pie in the sky, but the moment you stop being able, for whatever reason, something happens, you stop being able to pay your monthlies on it and you lose the entire thing and a large portion of, what you were expecting to get out of it. This configuration, I believe, is set up such that like in the near term, not like far medium term, it starts to pay its own dividends so that it's just sort of like fire and forget if you want to, right? I mean, explain it to me. It's been a while.
So the dividends are considered an overpayment of your premium. So they come back to you tax-free. They're sitting on top of any contributions you make. So it makes your pot of money grow bigger and bigger and bigger as you're taking advantage of compounding. The policy can support itself. So you could take your dividends, you could take the interest and dividends, and you can offset your premium costs with those. Generally, somewhere around year 7, that's the case. The policy can support itself. That gave me peace of mind because when I got my policy, I'm like, well, I don't know what I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life. How do I know if I can cover these premium payments? So there is a strategy. If I run into trouble or I change my strategy, there's something I can do. However, that's not the optimal way to run the policy. You want to shove as much cash in these policies as possible. The idea is how much cash can we shove in here, still have it be an insurance product, and have that money earn us tax-free interest and dividends that we can then loan to ourselves. They're unstructured loans. So that means, let's say we do all well, if we do all the due diligence in the world and our investment fails, we're not on the hook with a bank who's going to take everything we own. We just don't pay ourselves back because the insurance company has guaranteed their money. They said, you pay your premium payment, we guarantee you a death benefit. So when you die, we'll pay your death benefit and we'll deduct whatever loan you've taken out minus some interest. So they don't care. Maybe you have a $2 million death benefit and you took out 50 grand. They're like, all right, so we'll pay your beneficiary 2 million minus 50 grand and some interest. No biggie.
We have some interesting comments here.
It's interesting.
I hope I'm not jumping around too much to make it less intelligible to people. So basically what we're talking about here is you can create a life insurance policy that can function as a bank account where you put cash in and then you can immediately loan it back out to yourself if you needed it at a really low interest rate, correct?
Yeah, it's a fixed interest rate. I don't know. They're all different, but right now mine's 5%. But you're earning interest and dividends, almost cancels that out. But the idea is it's on your policy. Your pot of money is still sitting there, continuing to earn interest and dividends while you're borrowing the money from the insurance company and paying them interest. So your money is continuing to compound. If you ever looked at a compound curve, not super sexy, but actually it is over time. When do you ever take advantage of compounding? You put money in the bank and then you take it out and you do something with it. You live your life, you buy your house, you buy your car, whatever it might be, you get stolen by the government, who knows. But here, the money touches your policy first. So it's always sitting in that pot earning interest and dividends, whether you've loaned it out to yourself or not. The other interesting thing is this is a private contract. So debt, like creditors can't come after it. There's no legal action after it because it's technically a benefit to your beneficiary. It's not your policy. It's for someone else when you pass away. It's kind of an interesting take on things.
Okay, let's get to some questions. TurboTastic asks, can your growing pot of money keep up with the rate at which they are printing USD toilet paper? Which is a good question.
So who knows, because they're printing it quite fast. But right now, our money is still worth something, right? So touch the money to the policy. So it's working in the background for you, regardless of what's happening. Immediately take it out, loan it to yourself, and buy the thing that you think is of value. Maybe it's land, maybe it's precious metals, maybe it's ammo, maybe it's food, maybe it's crypto. It could be any of those things. But if it touches your policy first, now you have a multi-tiered strategy with the same dollars. Otherwise, you take your fiat, you put it in the bank, you lose money to inflation, you spend it on something, and now you have opportunity cost because whatever you spent it on, if that's not the golden ticket, you don't have anything left. You have to make more money to then get you to the next stage to invest in something else. This isn't really an investment vehicle. I'd say it's an emergency fund, an opportunity fund. So now I have this pot of money all the time that I can loan to myself. When I see opportunities, I can evaluate them and take advantage of them if I choose to. Most people are investing in things that are speculative. They're putting the money in the stock market. Do you know what you're doing when you put your money in the stock market? Do you have any idea what any of those things are? Do you know simple math? Like, are they quoting you the average return or the actual return? Like, if you look at math, the average return can look quite good. Like, the market did so great over 10 years. Well, how much money did I actually get back out of that? And what was the fee that you charged me annually? And did you only charge me when my money went up, or did you charge me regardless of the performance of my portfolio? Were you always taking your commission? It's kind of an interesting question.
Okay, so let's do that. Let's try and combat inflation by investing in crypto. Let's say we have 10 grand and we have one of these policies. Rather than just take the 10 grand and flip it into Bitcoin or Monero or etc. You first throw it into your policy, and then you immediately loan it back out to yourself at what, a 2% interest rate? What's the interest rate?
Mine's currently 5%.
5%. Okay, so but your money is also still considered in the policy and earning its own sort of dividends there inside the policy, right? So does that offset the percentage, and by how much?
True. It does. So it's technically life insurance. So it'll depend on your age, your health, your gender. They'll do pretty extensive underwriting and then determine a factor for you. So it'll be different for everybody. Mine's over 5%, amortized over the course of my policy. So it's about equal. It'll be about equal for what I loan out. But the idea is that I'm loaning it out to myself. I'm putting it into something that is going to be cash flowing for me. So I'm paying myself back from something that's cash flowing. So not only is it sitting in the policy earning somewhere around the interest rate that they're charging me, but it's also being put to work somewhere else that's earning me cash flow that I'm paying my loan back. So now I'm really doing those two things with my one pot of money, and it's giving me a death benefit. So if you have a family, if you have a business, if you have anyone that's relying on your income, or you want legacy wealth, a death benefit's really important. Most people will buy term insurance and they'll pay on an annual basis for this term insurance. And it looks great when you're young. As soon as you get old, it's really expensive. And so most people cancel their policies and end up leaving their families nothing. Or people have businesses and they don't realize the liabilities that they're leaving behind if something happens to them. So the insurance piece of it actually is quite important. So for me, I'm paying premiums to have life insurance. So I have a death benefit associated with that. And I'll always have that. So by year, well, I'm going to get to a point where
go ahead.
Every dollar I'm putting in toward cash value, every dollar I pay to my premium, I'm getting $1 plus back in cash value because of that compounding curve. So every dollar I'm paying into my policy, I'm getting $1 plus back in cash value. And I have a death benefit. So it's like a weird prize, but you get free life insurance along with your cash value, right? I don't have to pay for life insurance separately. That's just part of the game now.
Okay, so we put our 10 grand in. It's pulling dividends around the interest rate that you're paying to have it loaned back out to yourself, give or take some. And then you put it in Bitcoin for a year. Where would you have been sitting? So your money is getting dividends over here with a bonus-free life insurance policy, while also doubling up on the price of Bitcoin over the past year. Is that an oversimplification, or is that literally what we're talking about?
Oh, really? It's a long-term strategy. So you're not going to get a policy and then expect to cancel it. You're not going to get a policy and expect to make a whole lot of money in year one. This is a long-term strategy. So if your underlying strategy is to have a policy and accumulate this cash value, then yes, you loan out the money, you put it into another vehicle that you think, for whatever reason, you're behind, will make you more money. It could be something less volatile than crypto. I'd say a lot of people that invest in crypto don't know what they're doing or don't understand the technology. They're just doing it because they're rejecting the dollar and they think this must be better. But imagine if you put it into something that you know is going to cash flow. Prior to this year, it could have been real estate. Now we know that the government can make mandates that change your ability to earn income on your own properties. But something like real estate, in the past, always people would pay their rent. You would cover your mortgage payment. You're going to leverage that dumb money, and then the difference you pay back to your policy. So you're making money off your real estate. You're depreciating your real estate. It hopefully is also appreciating, and you have money churning in the background in your policy. It allows you huge multi-tiered strategies that once you start understanding that and leveraging your own money, that's where you can make real money. And if you look at the size of banks own life insurance, almost all banks own, that's a huge industry. Bank owned life insurance, corporate owned life insurance is huge. Places like Walmart were trying to get policies on every single employee they had because they're all going to die. That's a guaranteed. In this strategy, every single person here is going to die. So the insurance company has to pay out. Who's going to collect that money? Payouts of death benefits are tax-free as well. So that's a way from generation to generation to grow the pot of money that's outside the taxable system.
So you pay taxes up front on whatever money you're getting. If you get a paycheck or you cash out your 401k or whatever, you take the penalty to move that into this system to sort of become your own bank. That there's no way around that you're suggesting, right?
That is correct. Yeah. But if you look at the historical tax rates, we're in one of the lowest brackets ever. So can we predict what's going to happen in the future? People are like, oh, I'll be in a lower tax bracket when I retire. Why is that? Do you really think the taxes are going to go down? You think in the future they're going to charge us less money? That seems pretty unlikely. So I would rather pay the taxes now and then have control. I don't want someone to rule over my money. I want to have control over that. So then if I have control, then what's possible for me?
Oh, I see. So in a 401k, the first thing is for the years that you're locked up in a 401k, you're locked up in a 401k. You can't do anything with that money. It's just in the stock market. It's at the whim of the hedge funds and the insanity, like what we've seen recently with game stonks. The big. Have you heard about the big controversy over the stock market and the hedge funds and the GameStop company, right? So if you're in your 401k, you're sort of stuck in that investment vehicle. Can't do anything about it. You're out of control of your own resources. And the point you just made, I think, is valid, and I had not thought about it previously. Is that you are hoping that in late in life, when you're ready to retire, that the tax system, the tax rubric, is what you were promised it was going to be now. That later it's still going to be low for people that aren't currently earning a lot. That they won't at some point declare a financial catastrophe emergency, too big to fail, hashtag, save us all, where they raid 10% of everyone's 401k for the greater good. All of this stuff is totally plausible. And if you're locked up in a 401k, it's like you're at the mercy of, you're trusting the government to do right by you, which seems like a pretty stupid thing.
401k is a line in the tax code. Is that where you want to put your money? I mean, that's the only question that I have. Like, it's a line in the tax code. Is that where you want to put your money? Well, what if they change that line? They have changed that line. That's the biggest pot of money that's out there. There's major debt on the books. They're printing money all the time. And we're going to trust our money to a line in the tax code. And we're going to assume that we're going to be in a lower tax bracket. Why do we think that? Are you going to take out and live off of less money in your retirement than you do today? Like, why would you want that? And with inflation, you're going to have to be pulling out a whole lot more money for today's dollars to live in the future. And is the tax bracket going to follow inflation exactly? I doubt that. So the chances of being taxed high, that's pretty high. What about the market conditions? Again, if you understand the difference between average and actual numbers, it's pretty substantial. And if you look at compounding fees over the course of your life, if you're paying a financial institution annually, some percentage of your portfolio, that's a lot of money over time that's being taken out of your pot of money. So there are things to consider. And with a 401k, you have one pot of money.
Go ahead.
And you have to think like, all right, well, I'm going to retire. How long am I going to live? What are my expenses going to be? And you have all these questions, all these variables you don't have answers to. So you take this pot and you try to divide up the piece of the pie and have your little sliver with the goal of ending life at $0. Because if you outlive your money, you could have lived a better life. And if you run out of money, then what? So you end up dying with $0 and you leave nothing to anyone else. So there is no legacy anymore. Legacy is an important thing. How do we pass on? How do we give other generations a chance, of freedom-minded people, a chance to actually have a voice? And you can't choose the years that the stock market is down. So let's say you go to retire and the stock market's down. You don't have time to recover. They're always like, oh, you'll have time to recover. Well, what if you need to retire? You need your money. So if you withdraw your money during a down year, you're in a double down. You've lost money and you're taking out whatever you do have in there, that you're going to suffer even more. So then what's the strategy? But once you're in it, you're in it. Like, how do you recover at that point? And so I guess what I say is, why don't we talk about these things before it's too late? Like, you can come up with your own strategy. Like, I can tell you my very biased opinion, but it's worked for me. I actually do it. And I've seen other people do it. It's not, there's no mystery here. There's nothing that's really hidden. So how do you put a strategy in place that you can actually predict what's going to happen and you have the control to pivot?
It's good and useful, I think, to not put all of our eggs in one basket. And a lot of people in the freedom space are their one basket is cryptocurrencies. Now, granted, there's a lot of good reasons to look at that basket, and it's a pretty nice basket right now. But it's also good to have other ideas and other strategies like this, especially if the two might be compatible and you can work in parallel almost with them like this. So let me try and get to some of these questions. And again, guys, we're taking open questions from any of the viewers in any of the watch parties, as well as on YouTube and all of our live stream platforms. So get them in now. You only have about 28 minutes left with Lisa before we have to move on to our next guest. So if you have questions about this, now's the time. The first one is a comment from Vincent Migtau. He says, yep, I don't trust government. I don't trust banks. I don't trust the media. And I don't trust insurance companies. That's why he owns Bitcoin. So I think that's a valid point. Like, yes, I think we agree banks are scary and untrustworthy, and the government's definitely untrustworthy, but aren't big insurance companies also untrustworthy? Like, why is it better to trust these insurance companies rather than the banks?
They've been operating for over 150 years. They have done pretty much what they've said. They've paid out dividends every year of their existence, including the Great Depression. They've been used as banks since the beginning of time by farmers. Could something change? Sure. We can only work with what we know now. But these are mutual companies. They are very successful. They do have business plans, and so they run a good business. And the reality is they are not like banks. They don't work with stockholders or shareholders. They're not trying to answer to people on the short term. They're not doing stupid things today so that they can go into a meeting and be like, look what we did today, that will then hurt everybody in the long term. They're committing to paying out death benefits that could be decades out. And so their strategies are very, very long term. And their pots of money are so large that they're liquid, that they can make moves that other companies can't. So is it something completely that you can trust? I don't know. It's a private contract that I have gone into, and they have fulfilled on everything that they've said. But again, you can touch all of your money to the policy and then pull it right out and put it into the thing that really you think matters more. So then you have both strategies running. And if the insurance company screws you, you haven't lost anything. And if they don't, you now have a legacy. You now have cash flow growing in the background. Even though you said, like, screw you, insurance company, they're still doing what they said in the background, and you can benefit from the interest and dividends that you're accumulating while you're investing in Bitcoin or whatever it might be.
It's hilarious to think. I'd be like, hey, I want to open a life insurance policy with you. Here's 20 grand. Okay, I'm going to take that back now. Thank you. Now you just keep doing that dividend thing over there. I'm going to go do something with this money. It's hilarious.
It's possible.
Is this a valid answer to the basically the trust question? If this is what the wealthy people are doing, then wouldn't this vehicle be the least likely one to get to be near the top of the list of things that the government messes with? Because it's those wealthy people that are using this strategy to sidestep 401ks and stock market stuff and maintain control over their liquidity. So that those wealthy people that are entrenched in the system might not allow this to be high on that list, is one way to put it. What do you think about that?
Yeah, the wealthy people, the banks and corporations, we have all the right people on our side. So if it ever goes away, it'll be one of the last things, I would imagine. It is a strategy. It isn't like necessarily this is the thing that they did to get rich, but it's definitely the thing that they've done to stay rich. Corporations and banks definitely do it to get rich, but you can get to that point too.
Okay, let's go to the next question here. Let me pull it up. Excuse me. Just keeping track of everything here. Turbotastic. Oh, we already asked about that. Criticism. This is good. I'm actually a 20-year life insurance expert. It's highly unethical to be marketing these as investment products. What do you say to that? I mean, like,
I agree. I specifically said...
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I specifically said it is not an investment vehicle. It is an emergency and opportunity fund. So once you have this foundation set up, now you have that, and you can take that to invest in the things that you think are worth more, that can cash flow. Is it an investment vehicle itself? No. Will it perform better than most investment vehicles that people choose? Probably. But no, it's an emergency and opportunity fund. So now everything is an opportunity to me. I know that I have a cash flow. I have a cash value. So now when I see that someone's building a business or needs to buy a house and doesn't have down payment money or whatever it might be, I now see opportunity because I have the funds to support it. So I can do private lending. I could be a part business owner. I mean, the options are limitless once you have that ability.
I'm an amateur, so I'm just kind of asking questions that come to mind. You've been doing this for how many years? Like, personally, before you even started talking to people about it? Like, how long have you been doing this, and how has it been working out for you?
6 years.
Okay.
It's worked out really well. I mean, they're modern, unlike most insurance companies. There are online portals. It looks like we would expect a banking system to look, so at least we know how to interface with it. I ask for my money and it shows up. They don't ask me what I'm going to do with it or about my previous earnings or my debt to income ratio or my credit score. It's my money. They're like, you want it? Okay, cool. Here it is. I wanted to point that out. And I've earned interest and dividends.
My producer showed me his web interface that basically shows him his account. And it has a balance, and there's a button that says, send me a check for this amount. And you click the button, and a couple days later, I mean, they FedEx him a check for his money. And they didn't ask any questions, and they just do. So it's like, It's amazing because you continue dividending revenue, getting dividends on money that they just sent you in a check. Anyway, I'm marveling at how they have said. I shouldn't be so surprised because certainly, the wealthy people are going to have a system in place to protect their assets and protect their assets access to their assets instead of the plebs that are stuck using 401ks pumping up the stock market for them, right? And this is exciting that we are learning about this stuff. Let's see. Do I have something else?
I hate that I have to tell people what I'm doing with my own money. So if I'm wiring money for an investment, I have to tell them why I'm moving the money. Like, what? It's my money. Like, why do I need to ask for permission or access or anything like that? So this makes me happier because I have access and nobody asks me any questions, and they're very pleasant.
So, question back to 1-2, who had the criticism on the life insurance expert. What specifically is unethical about what we're discussing here? Are you saying that if she was selling it as an investment product, that would be unethical? Because I think she said that. I mean, first of all, she's not like selling anything, right? You're just explaining to people how to do this, or are you actually helping people? Like, what is your end goal with this discussion? Let's be upfront.
It's a little combination. I started just talking about my life because I realized that I had an experience that could help a lot of people. And then I kept referring people to insurance agents that I had worked with. And I gave them a lot of business. So I got my own policy my own life insurance license, because what I like about it is trying to put those puzzle pieces together. Be like, what is your goal? Like, how much do you care about the death benefit? Is it all about cash value? Like, what is the goal here? And like creating something that works for them over time. So I am a life insurance agent now. I like to educate people as much as they want to help them with their financial strategy with my bias. I also will help people learn through play. So we started a Discord channel, wealthbattle.com/free. So people can come play games that will teach you about the financial industry. How do you operate? How do you think in this industry? What's possible? Like, what rules have we put in place that we follow, but we don't need to be? And so there's a lot that we can talk about by playing some games. So we've been doing that, and it's a cool community. It's a great way to hang out with people and learn some useful life skills. Because if we're worried about paying rent or eating, we can't do the things in the world that we want to do. And I want a more resilient community because I want to have friends that are out there doing cool things. And I want to be able to travel with them or do whatever it is without them being held back for financial reasons.
Yeah, I had Shepard on my Disenthralled channel recently, and we were just talking about how we really need to put the capitalist in the anarcho-capitalism a lot more. We need a lot of successful people making intelligent decisions with their money beyond just buy Bitcoin and hodl. Like, I mean, that's something that the layman can do. But look, like if you're coming into wealth because you did some hodling, you might want to up your game a little bit. Put the capitalism in the ANCAP. And this is, I think, from what I've seen, and again, like I have not done this yet. Full disclosure, I have not started this or involved myself with it directly, but my producer has, and I've been watching from the sidelines for a year now. I think it's been about a year. And I have seen no shadiness. I've seen no weirdness. I've seen no scamminess. All I've seen is a guy is exactly what we're talking about here. He can get his money whenever he wants while they pay him dividends for the privilege. So that's really cool. What is it called? Is there a name for what this is or what you're doing so that people can like look it up and go search for it?
Yeah, it's a form of cash value whole life insurance, frequently called infinite banking.
Okay.
But it's a form of whole life insurance where you're really playing with the premiums to get the desired result, which for me is shoving as much cash in my policy as possible with the IRS still thinking it's insurance, so I can earn interest and dividends and use my own bank.
Okay.
So it's not magic money, right? In the beginning, the first couple of years, it's not magic money. You have to have the money to borrow the money.
Right.
So you put money in. There is some cost of insurance that you will pay. They'll hold back from you over the first couple of years. but you're not going to have more money than you put in for a couple of years. In the beginning, it will look more like an insurance policy. You'll have a death benefit, but any of the money that you put in that's available will actually be available to you.
So
you can take it out. It is liquid. It's not held back.
More like a savings account early on, and then later it's a savings account with some bonuses. You did not like that explanation.
I would say that's...
I saw that.
I had to think about it for a minute. I'd say that's accurate, except you can still take your money out and have it earning interest and dividends in the background while you're doing something with your money. So there are strategies for putting money toward a premium payment and paying off debt. Consumer debt can be very expensive. So there are strategies. It's not for everyone. It depends upon what kind of debt you're working with and what kind of income you're working with. But there are strategies for using your policy to pay off debt. But the whole idea is that it's not using a savings or checking account, because if you do that, there's opportunity cost. Anytime you pay cash for something, you might say, well, it's cheaper if I pay cash. I'm not using it. It's not 5%. I'm not paying an interest on it. It's cash. Huge opportunity cost. Let's say you save up all your money and you put $50,000 as a down payment on your home. Well, now it's stuck in house jail. The bank has it and they're making money off of your money. Imagine if you had touched it to your policy first, then put it into your home. Well, that 50 grand still sitting in your account earning interest and dividends in a tax-free environment. So it's just strategy. Like, can we be smarter about how we do things?
Okay, Michael Ovson says, the risk to consider with these whole life-backed private banking arrangements is that we take on counterparty risk with the insurance company while measuring value in USD shitcoin. First of all, do you know what he means by that? And what are your thoughts?
I'm not sure that I would see it as counterparty risk, because they're holding our money. So I guess they're saying, that person holding your money could fold and your money would go away, which I'm not sure how that would be any different than putting it in the bank or the stock market or anywhere else. If I'm choosing between the bank or a life insurance policy, I would choose the policy. So I'm not really sure what he means exactly by the counterparty risk, but it's the same idea where if it touches the policy, you pull it right out and put it in somewhere you think will be safer. But at least you have a multi-tiered strategy.
Margie asks, what do you think insurance companies invest in order to give you interest and dividends? Aren't they in the stock market as well?
They're not so much in the stock market. They make a ton of money selling insurance products. People pay premiums for all types of insurance in life and in business that never pays out. There are irresponsible insurance agents that sell things like universal life insurance that ends up imploding when people are old and they get to the point where they're no longer insurable and they don't have the funds to cover premiums. So they've paid in their whole life, and now the insurance companies will never have to pay out a dividend or a death benefit. Same with people that buy term insurance. People pay their whole lives and then it gets too expensive for them. And they're like, well, my kids are old enough. I don't need to leave them anything. I don't think it's a need question. It's what if we can? What if we can make ourselves more prosperous and live in abundance instead of living out of necessity and surviving? So there's tons of products that people pay into. The insurance company never has to pay back out. They also do really long-term projects. So someone had to fund the Freedom Tower rebuild. That was a decade-plus project. They are liquid, so they'll go in, they bought like huge sections of Boston on the waterfront, and then years later sold it for many hundreds, thousands X what they paid for it because they were in a position to buy it. Most people can't.
Because they're just getting all this cash from all their customers, and then they make investments with that. What you're saying.
Yeah, and they need to have some liquid to pay out death benefits. So it's more of like investing on Main Street, really long-term loans. And then they're making money off of life insurance, whole life insurance people that are borrowing from themselves. It's a low interest, but some companies will pay you a bonus. They'll do direct recognition. They're saying, well, if you actually don't use your money in your policy, we can maybe make 8% on it instead of 5%. So we'll give you a bonus. for not taking your money out, but you're welcome to take it if you want to. So their strategies are very, very long-term, like multi-decade long loans or construction projects or big buildings, a lot in the real estate market.
Emily says everything she is saying would make a lot more sense pre-COVID. Emily didn't say why, but do you have any thoughts on that? Like if COVID has changed this strategy in any way?
Why? Because of all those deaths that we weren't expecting, or I don't know. I don't think anything has changed really.
Interesting. Yeah, Emily, if you have a follow-up on that, let us know. What's changed with investments around COVID. Margie says, I'm doing the same as her, but instead of an insurance policy, I have it invested in the market. She wouldn't. Margie says, I wouldn't trust the life insurance policy. So Margie's saying that she trusts the stock market more than the life insurance policies. We've kind of talked about that a little bit. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I think the market is manipulated a lot. So there are definitely ways you can benefit from that. But we're not the ones that are controlling it. So it is volatile. You can't use your money while it's in the market. So it will be doing that one thing for you, and you have to cross your fingers and hope that it is a positive. Or if you really liked the market, like this is just like, it's not an either or. It's like you touch money to your policy and at the bank, you pull it back out and you put it in the market. And if you lose it, you don't have to pay. It's an unstructured loan. You don't have to pay it back. And if you gain more, maybe you put your invested capital back into your policy and you work with your earnings, which is a smart strategy in life anyway. So I think they can be done together.
I missed the unstructured loan part. Okay, so let's say we put 10, instead of buying Bitcoin, like we were saying earlier, let's just do the same thing with the stock market. You take your 20 grand, drop it in your life insurance policy, yank it back out, say, thanks for all the fish, and then go, invest in the stock market. And the difference that you would be paying is, whatever the small interest rate difference is in between dividends and the interest you're paying for your loaning your own money to yourself to go buy into the stock market. And so if the stock market is is keeping up with inflation over time, then you would perform just slightly less than inflation, if I'm thinking about that accurately, right? But you would also have the dividends in the life insurance policy, right?
Yeah. So let's say a blanket, I'm going to earn 5% in my insurance policy. I think mine earns a little bit better than that, but let's just say 5%. What would you have to earn in the stock market to be equivalent? You'd have to account for taxes and inflation, right? So, but with taxes, it's like what, 7-8%? So your earnings have to be higher. Can you do that on an ongoing basis? If you look at the actual return, everyone look up the average versus the actual return in the market. What is the actual return? What's your tax rate? And look at what that number is. And this is instead, you can work with a guaranteed number. You can say, I know I'm going to earn this interest rate. Contractually, we've agreed to this. The unstructured loan part of it is you borrow your own money from the policy and you set the terms. You say, well, fuck it, I'm never going to pay it back. Like someone set this policy up for me and I'm just going to borrow the money out and I'm going to buy my house and I'm never going to pay it back. And when I die, my beneficiary will be out that 50 grand or whatever it is that I spent. No biggie. They're still going to get more money than they would have otherwise.
Because it comes out of the life insurance payout.
Yeah, the death benefit.
So you can put your money in, or you loan it back out to yourself, never pay it back, and they continue generating dividends and pay out a life insurance when you die. Okay.
Yeah.
This is why I was like skeptical early on, because it doesn't make sense. I don't, it doesn't make sense why they would set up that arrangement.
So a more responsible scenario, because we want to be responsible for ourselves, is it's our money. We're gonna spend the money on something. Let's say I've invested in my own business, and I know that my business is not going to cash flow for 3 years. I'm in a building phase. It's very early. I need this money to build my business. I tell myself I will not pay back my loan for 3 years. I will accumulate that interest. On year 3, I will start paying myself back, and I set the schedule. And I start paying myself back. But that's on my terms. If something changes, I change the terms. If I don't want to pay it back, it doesn't matter. If you borrow money from a bank or some other institution, they tell you the terms. They tell you the rate and the repayment schedule. And if you do not follow that, there are huge implications. So that's not something I want to work with. I'd rather work with myself. Like I can communicate with myself pretty effectively. I like my terms.
Okay. Yeah. Your terms are generally better than their terms, right? Peachland Taxi asks, is this also possible in Canada? Brendan says, does this only work in America or would it work in Ireland? And Rob Power says, can a foreigner participate in this scheme? Do you have any information on that?
Yeah, so it does work in Canada, the UK, and Australia for sure. People that are outside the US can get US policies if they have a reason, if they have family or business, or there's an insurable interest in something in the US, then they can do it. But otherwise, I don't think there's anything quite the same in other countries. But definitely I have some contacts in Canada for sure.
Interesting. Okay. All right, we have 6 minutes left, and then I need to move on to our next guest. Is there any kind of conclusion that you'd like to put on this, or anything you want to make sure that people know or understand, or that I've missed or forgotten to ask you about, anything like that?
Well, if anyone wants to pick my brain, I'd be happy to talk about it more. Again, I understand it's biased. It's been very effective for me. It has given me financial freedom. I like the terms. We are playing games. Everyone is welcome to join our Discord server, wealthbattle.com/free. They can join. It's free. And they can come play, meet some cool people, ask questions about money, and really learn some of these strategies. So they're welcome to do that. Okay.
I think I'm personally going to look at getting involved in something like this with you soon. That we'll talk later. We'll talk later. All right, guys. Last call for questions for Lisa here, and then we will move on to our next guest. Let's see. Do we have anything else here? Kason, my producer, is watching he's watching like 8 chat rooms right now to catch everyone's questions from everywhere. He is amazing. Let's see. This is my kind of woman, says Raw Power. That's why I don't have anyone, probably. I just don't have anything to talk about. I get smarter every time I hear Lisa speak, says Luis.
Hey, Luis.
Someone says insurance companies will find any excuse not to pay. This isn't like a life insurance payout that she's talking about, right? Lisa, why don't you address that?
It's true, but a death benefit's pretty binary. You're either alive or it's hard to contest that.
Yeah.
So the payout, right? So the actual payout, you're either alive and they don't pay it, or you die and they pay it out. They don't contest it. But yeah, most of what I'm talking about is living benefit. What can you do while you're alive?
Got it. And that's the case. I've literally seen like my producer's website where he clicks the "Give me a check" button, and they mail him his own money. It's pretty cool.
I mean, for me, no one needs my money, so my dog doesn't need it. So it's not, for me, it's not about the death benefit, but I see how valuable that is to families and businesses. And, but for me, I like the death benefit because then the IRS says, oh, insurance, and they look the other way. And that's my goal. I want to shove cash in there.
The Raw Power asks how they can contact you. She just told you, I think it was, why don't you give that URL to us one last time?
wealthbattle.com/free. Get in our Discord and you will find me in there.
The Taoist asks, how high is the discount on the amount available for a structured loan on the first, second, or third year? Won't that percentage become an opportunity cost in Bitcoin not available for purchase? I can read it again.
Yeah, that would be great.
How high is the discount on the amount available for a structured loan on the first, second, or third year? I don't think we're talking about structured loans. This is an unstructured loan to yourself. Won't that percentage become an opportunity cost in Bitcoin not available for purchase?
Well, I mean, you're making an assumption that Bitcoin's going to go up, I think, is the biggest thing. So could there be an opportunity cost? Sure, but it has to go up enough, and you need to be able to realize that gain in order to have something to compare it to. You can, as a caveat, you can take out a structured loan. You could go to the bank and say, hey, your interest rates are what, like 0.5% today? Cool. Can you use my cash value and my policy as collateral? And so it might be a way like thinking about arbitrage a little bit, it might be a way of getting a loan with a lower interest rate, but now you're in structured loan territory. So you would want to put it into something where you could pay that back quickly.
Okay. So this,
but there's always opportunity cost when you put money in one place and not somewhere else. You need to make choices.
Open Your Eyes says those whole life insurance vehicles take years to start paying off, and you need to be paying huge premiums on a really big policy to have this work. Like Lisa has used it. How much was her policy? He says.
My policy is quite large. However, they're scalable, so that you can make the smallest policy possible and work within your means and start making a bank. So you could say, I don't have a lot of money, or you could say, I have what I have right now and I'm going to build my bank. And then you change your mindset and you get it into motion. Otherwise, you wait years and you do nothing. So do you want to take action or not take action? Completely scalable. I can explain that all to you. I'd be happy to. But it's not high premiums. High premiums are if they're designed improperly. That's not what our goal is. Our goal is to increase the cash value.
Justin Anarchast says, I'm 55. Am I too old to get started?
No, I just got a policy on my dad. He's 67.
Turbotastic says Bitcoin isn't going up. The USD is going down. Yeah, that's pretty good. I think we'll end on that. Lisa, thank you for coming on the show. I know it was like a pinch. You know, I just requested that you come on real quick and help us out. I appreciate you doing that. It's been a pleasure to talk to you. Is there anything you'd like to leave us with?
I think you're fantastic, Patrick. Thank you. And everyone come join the community. Let's all be financially free.
Hell yes. Hell yes. Put the capital in anarcho-capitalism. Thank you, Lisa. I will talk to you later. Have a good one.
All right. Thanks. Bye.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is 6 p.m. That means we have our next guest. Our next guest is using a pseudonym, Murray R. Freeman. A pseudonym, he says, is in honor of the libertarian legend Murray Rothbard. He is an independent digital asset investor focused on early-stage protocols. Since first getting into crypto by way of precious metals in 2017, he has backed dozens of successful projects, both directly and as a partner in venture and hedge funds. He speaks as an individual and not on behalf of the Epicenter project as a whole. Full disclosure, he owns a significant position in Epic Cash coins, having bought them on the open market directly from miners. Welcome to the show, Murray. And I think we're going to have you as audio only today because you're attempting to be pseudonymous, right?
It's because I have a face that's perfect for a career in radio.
All right, let me see if I. Oh, okay. We have a little something there. Well, we put Murray's face up. That'll be good. So, Murray, what did you want to?
He's a lot more photogenic and well respected than me. Sorry, go ahead.
Ouch. All right. You had when I was talking with you about what we were going to discuss today on the show, you started giving me this massive brain dump on the DNA of Bitcoin and all these different categories and facets and angles in which you don't think Bitcoin was sort of living up to its name. In the face of the skyrocketing price, I would like you to explain yourself, sir.
Sure. So if we go back to the original Bitcoin white paper, it is described as a P2P electronic cash system. And the asset that we call Bitcoin today, which is BTC, if we look at the attributes that make Bitcoin what it was and why it was special and why we love it, I certainly love it. It's really, in practice, is not what it used to be. And there's a lot of reasons for that and nuances to it. But essentially, if we want to address the type of problems that the prior speaker, Lisa, was talking about, where you have to use centralized intermediaries and get people's permission to access and use your own money, then you're getting further and further away from the beautiful creation that Satoshi gave us. And now, 12 years into this experiment, there's a lot of different factors to that we can get into if you want. But essentially, if you want a P2P electronic cash system, then that's one design. If you want digital gold on a blockchain that you need to use essentially banks to go through to access it, which is increasingly what we have today, then you stick with BTC. I like to say that what Satoshi came up with, sorry, there's a little bit of an echo. What Satoshi came up with was a beautiful movie, and it was pressed onto a DVD, and now we have Blu-ray, and people are debating whether it's the physical disc that matters. In other words, the original design of the blockchain substrate that movie was printed on, or is it the content of the movie that is important, regardless of whether it's on a DVD or Blu-ray? And I think it's the content rather than the format that matters.
So what do you mean by Bitcoin's DNA, and how is it not living up to it?
Yeah, so the DNA of Bitcoin is a set of rules. It is what is known as Nakamoto consensus, which is a fixed supply of 21 million coins by the year 2140. It involves proof of work with no special nodes, and that gives you what's known as distributed consensus. It has the longest chain rule, which is what determines which version of the blockchain in the event of forks the truth is perceived to be. The game theory around incentives, where it is more profitable to cooperate than to make trouble and attack the network, that is what Bitcoin is. It's a specification for, again, a P2P electronic cash system where you can transfer value trustlessly to anyone, anywhere, and no one can stop you without using any central intermediaries in the middle. So that is what Satoshi created as Bitcoin. And if we look at it today, on a lot of these different measures, that's not really how it works anymore. Bitcoin is a system that is open, public, permissionless, borderless, neutral, immutable, and censorship resistant. And if we go ahead and unpack all of those various different attributes, the way that people actually interface with the network is very different than, say, 10 years ago. And there's a lot of important differences to how it used to work and how it works today.
So what is it missing today?
So if we talk about openness and permissionlessness, really, today you need to go through companies like Coinbase or Binance that need to collect a lot of KYC information. They need to police what you do with your money. I know of a case where somebody withdrew BTC to an address that Coinbase said was affiliated with some type of nefarious activity. He claims it wasn't. Maybe it was. Maybe it wasn't. I don't know. But essentially, they're in control of what you can and can't do with your money. If you try to withdraw your crypto from Robinhood, your customer service will send you an email that says, you can't do that. And one of the reasons why is because you might do something that we don't approve of with your money. It's either your money and you're in control, or it's someone else's money and they're in control. And when you need to go through a custodial service, like a Coinbase, they have legal liability if you use their system in a way that exposes them to potential problems. And the original Bitcoin design of a user holding their own keys and validating a local copy of the blockchain by running their own node and ideally mining, that's how it was in the beginning. But because the BTC blockchain only grows, and now it's over 300 gigabytes, and you need some pretty heavy-duty hardware to not only run a node, but also especially to mine. And so you have increasing concentration and centralization of power of the topology of the network. And so it becomes increasingly permissioned in that you need to coordinate with someone to use the network versus using it yourself. It's less borderless and more fragmented. You have regional markets in different countries where coins sell for different prices based on their local market conditions and the fiat rail connectivity. But the biggest thing is censorship resistance. When Twitter got hacked and somebody somebody said, hey, Elon Musk, send me 1 Bitcoin and I'll send you 2 back. And I think 125,000 people or something like that tried through Coinbase to send BTC to those addresses. And Coinbase said, hey, good news, guys, we stopped you from sending to these hackers. But if that can be done against a, quote, hacker, then how different is that from the banking blockade when Visa and MasterCard turned off the ability of that organization to receive funding? Essentially, who you use to interface with the blockchain, if you even use it, is increasingly determined by the views of the company or financial institution that you're working with. You no longer have individual sovereignty over your money.
It is probably the most valid counterpoint to Bitcoin is its complete lack of privacy, which impinges on its fungibility. Unless you take what I would consider a layman would think to be extreme measures to protect one's privacy in anything larger than, a few $100s to get into Bitcoin anonymously at an ATM or whatever. If you start moving into the 4 and 5 figures of Bitcoin, it takes a significant amount of knowledge and strategy to remain anonymous, to be able to avoid, like you said, organizations like Coinbase. It is definitely an argument against its fungibility and against its permissionless nature when it can be sort of gate-kept. The gatekeepers can stand in the way. So I think that's a very valid criticism. That's why, my favorite crypto is Monero right now, because without the privacy aspect, without the ability to move in and out of something and to spend it and to transfer it, with no ability to sort of attach your name to it, then I don't know. I might as well use PayPal. And I know that's an extreme statement when it comes to the audience that we're watching here, but if I spend my non-anonymous currency in a way the government doesn't like, true, they might not be able to stop me because I have the keys and I can initiate the transfer. But they can come and put me in a cage afterwards if they don't like it. They can come, what is it, the wrench negotiation where they can, come and hit me with a hammer until I give them the keys. And because they know, unless I'm an IT expert and I know how to conduct these transactions privately, and I would never expect a layman to be able to rise to the challenge of doing that. And so I've been telling people, if your crypto doesn't have privacy, if your name can be stuck on it, I don't see why you wouldn't just use PayPal. Aside from the anti-inflation stuff and the ability to move it across borders, those are valid counter arguments to what I'm saying. So what do you have to say about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I would just point out that over 90% of transactions, at least here in the U.S., are not custodial, or they're not self-custodied in the sense of your keys, your coins. Most people are content to interface with Bitcoin through a company like a Coinbase or a Binance or a whatever. And I would actually push back a little bit against even as an IT expert, you're being able to maintain anonymity. If you are able to use a crypto ATM as one example that is not compliant, the operators are taking enormous risks because it's very clear through FinCEN and other regulatory agencies that they need, at least here in the United States, to get your KYC information. I haven't been able to see a crypto ATM for the past years, despite a lot of trying to see if people were following the laws or if they were trying to skirt it. There's pretty darn near 100% compliance, and I think there's a lot of good reasons for that makes sense, at least for this particular environment. But I think that the bigger issue and a counterpoint with Monero is, who are you, or not with Monero specifically, but there's a focus on, okay, well, I need to protect myself from the government or a certain group of people. But the bigger issue, I think, is companies like Amazon that have been quite successful in pursuing patents to link your blockchain identity with other metadata. For example, even if you use a VPN, there's deep packet inspection and all kinds of tools link you to the transaction outputs and trace what happens through the chain. And so you get into a scenario like where Target had the 13-year-old girl or whatever, where they knew and were targeting her pregnancy tests and maternity supplies 2 months before she knew that she was pregnant. That kind of invasion of privacy type of scenario, or even predatory pricing, where if my health insurance company thinks that I've eaten too much ice cream this month, they're going to raise my rates. Or with this environment of cancel culture and censorship and deplatforming, if you're using BTC, it's essentially you're publishing every purchase you make to Twitter, which sounds ridiculous. We would never show our bank or credit card statement online, certainly not to everyone permanently, but that's essentially what you're doing with all of these transparent blockchains. And another point about fungibility is when you have to worry about which coins you're getting, you can't trust the network to give you coins that are of value of what you expected. And there's all kinds of ways that can happen and cause problems. So, for example, if I sell my car to somebody, I put it on Craigslist, they show up, they send me the Bitcoin, and then the next morning I wake up and there's this Secret Service at my door because it turns out I sold it to a drug dealer. Well, then the burden of proof is on me to demonstrate that I'm not a drug dealer. And so with a currency like Monero, that is one of the few that offers 100% private transactions at the base layer, you do have that fungibility and you don't need to worry about that. But until the technology came out that we use, or that Epic Cash uses, called Mimblewimble, the fungibility came at the cost of scalability. And so the Monero blockchain is currently 67 gigs the last time I checked. BTC, by comparison, is 300. And Mimblewimble achieves its privacy as kind of a byproduct of discarding historical data in a process known as cut-through, where essentially all of the transactions in any block are melted or are aggregated together. And so it essentially truncates the data and keeps it very small. So by the time BTC is about 500 gigs on a similar transaction volume, this would probably be less than 100, maybe 50. But at the low volume today, there's only about 10,000 people around the world who mine this. And because it's not traded on any major centralized exchanges, only a couple small DEXs and mainly OTC trading with the miners, it's a 1.2 gigabyte chain file. And I think that has important implications for things like accessibility, where if you can run a full node and have the full copy of the blockchain on your local device and be able to generate the transaction and not have to trust anybody. That's the other thing, is if you're not running a full node, and I would say 98, 99% of people don't do that, it's really only miners and really advanced technical users or passionate hobbyists, then you're relying on someone else to tell you what the version of the blockchain is that is right. And again, you're getting back into trust. And the whole point of Bitcoin, I thought, was to not have to trust anybody. And yet we see trusting situations creep in over and over. Incidentally, there is a mining pool called Blocksphere that is now promoting its technology, where if you try to send to a blacklisted address, and of course these are like no-fly lists, nobody knows, are you on a list? How did you get on there? How do you get off? The mining pool will simply not bundle your transaction into a block. And okay, if only one or two pools out of the 12 or 20 or so that dominate the BTC mining, if it's only a minority that do that, then your transaction can get through. But again, you're kind of taking a risk. You're rolling the dice. And at that point, when you're accepting all of these service degradations, why not use PayPal? Why not use Venmo or Cash App? I mean, at least here in America, those apps work great.
Okay, I believe we're about to have a connection issue here. I'm told that I need to swap you to a different method. I put a link in our Telegram conversation to a Zoom call. If you would go ahead and hang up here and then connect with me on Zoom, we can continue this interview. So guys, I'm sorry, we're having some technical issues
right now.
Awesome. Go ahead and hang up this call if you would, and then I'll catch you over on Zoom. We are super dynamic this week. We are ready. All right, here we go, hopefully. Okay. We were dependent apparently on a battery for part of that connection here, and hopefully we're going to switch to something with hopefully a more stable connection. So if you guys have questions for this guy, if you guys have challenges for this guy, if you guys disagree with the things he's saying, this is your chance. I am watching the comments. We are watching. We will catch your questions, comments, and challenges, and we will give them to him. All right, here he is. Let's go ahead and add him to the room. Drum roll. Sir, can you hear me? All right, how about now? Sir, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Excellent. Okay, hopefully this internet connection holds out for us, and we can continue. That was a pretty short disruption, all things considered. Please continue with what you're saying.
I think that's about it. I was too focused on dialing the Zoom call, so you'll have to ask another question.
Fair enough. So, XMR225 says mushrooms, good vibes. Yes, very much. So why are you so interested in Epic as an alternative? I am not at all familiar with the technology, so treat me like a layman. But if it is not equal to Monero in its secrecy, then again, try and answer my challenge that I give people. Like, why shouldn't I just use PayPal?
So the primary value add that Epic offers is that it offers the original Bitcoin formula of trustless, open, public, permissionless, borderless, neutral, immutable, censorship resistant, P2P electronic cash on a public blockchain structure while solving the scalability and fungibility issues. Monero is certainly going to remain the darknet tool of choice and is best suited for that. Epic is designed to provide inflation protection above all else because the 21 million supply and disinflationary 4-year halvings, it's literally the exact same as BTC in terms of supply. In 7 years, the supply of Epic will be matching that of BTC, and they stay in lockstep forever. It's about 18 million BTC currently and about 10.6 million Epic. And so for me, the reason that I'm personally holding such a high conviction about this particular asset versus the other ones that are out there in the marketplace is because right now there's 11,000 coins a day that the network produces, and that figure goes down by half in October to 5,500, and there's 3 more halvings after that, culminating in 7 years from now there will only be 210 coins for 8 billion people on the planet. And so in a hyperinflationary environment, to buy into an asset whose production function is supply inelastic, meaning that no matter what happens to the price, no more can be created. I used to be in precious metals before coming to crypto because over time they preserve purchasing power. But then I realized that if the price of gold triples, then more gold will be produced. And if the price of a Bitcoin standard monetary asset like BTC or Epic goes up 10 times or even 1,000 times, no more can be created. And so I love Bitcoin. I've done wonderful things with not just BTC, but many other assets. And it made a great contribution to my life. But today, if I want to send money to someone, there's a lot of people in the middle who can interfere with that process. When I buy it, I have to jump through a bunch of hoops to acquire it. I have to fill out the same kind of intrusive banking forms and hold up little pieces of paper with my ID and a scribbled note on there that says such and such exchange. Here's my KYC hoop jumping through today, and also it's censorable. So I can send money to anyone, anywhere, using Epic. It's practically free. The other big thing is that we've all waited for, well, when are we going to use Bitcoin at Starbucks, and what are we waiting for? Well, the answer is today at $50,000 BTC, it'll cost you as much as $40 to send if you want it in the first block confirmation. Sometimes maybe 19 or 28 or something like that. But it is ridiculously expensive, especially if you're a small holder. And so a lot of people really haven't done the math on what 100,000 or 250,000 or whatever number BTC means to them individually, because if you end up having to pay a $500 transfer fee to move it, and then somehow when it gets to an exchange and the funds are frozen and your account is turned off because they view the coins as tainted, and again, maybe they are, maybe they aren't, you just avoid that whole class of issues with an asset like Epic. And so the privacy aspect is more in service of fungibility rather than in terms of any kind of facilitation of the really end of the spectrum that values complete privacy above all else. The way that the privacy in Mimblewimble works specifically is that at a low usage, which it is today, then it's relatively easy through timing analysis and other tools like that. Well, if there's only 10 people that transacted in a particular 1 minute block, then it's fairly easy to comb through and see who those are. But if you scale that into the thousands per block, then it gets interesting. And so those are more theoretical. In Monero, it's 11 currently is the ring size. And that is the anonymity set, at least at that first level. And the corresponding figure in Epic is over 1,000. So if it gets a lot of usage, it could actually provide some additional privacy. But that's really not what we are going after, because
why not? My question to you is, why wouldn't you go after that? Because why wouldn't I use Bitcoin Cash, for example? If I'm not concerned with privacy and like anonymity in my transactions, again, like, and this may sound pedantic and overly simplified, but I'm telling you, this is what my mother would say, for example. Why wouldn't I just use PayPal?
Okay, because you're missing the point. Bitcoin Cash is completely transparent. There is no privacy from anyone. Epic offers you privacy that if you split a dinner bill with your friend, you can't watch what he then does with the money as you can with BTC, but not hide from the NSA level privacy.
Why wouldn't I want to hide from the NSA? Of course, like, I don't want the NSA seeing what I'm doing.
I don't either, but that's the world we live in. And also, given that we live in a highly regulated, surveilled world, Monero is the target of, they offered a $625,000 bounty through the IRS to try and de-anonymize.
That was amazing news! And that means it's working! Hooray! Like, they wouldn't offer an almost, seven-figure bounty if it wasn't working. That makes me buy more Monero. When I saw that story, buy more Monero.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there's quite a cross-pollination. Many members of our community, incidentally, we call ourselves the Freeman family, because fundamentally what we're trying to do is free people from the slavery that is the fiat monetary system and the hidden tax that is inflation. It's worse than the overt taxes because it's more subtle and more pernicious, and has other greater adverse consequences. So I think we probably agree on 99% of these issues if we fully unpack them. But specifically in talking with other people who run privacy coin projects, specifically Firo, formerly Zcoin, they tried to get their asset on the Crypto.com credit card product, or debit card rather, and they said, no, you have privacy, so we're not going to let you on. Now, there's nothing illegal about privacy, there's nothing immoral about privacy, but it's just easier for a regulated financial institution that deals with crypto to say no, because it's less headache and they don't have soft pressure applied and all kinds of other stuff. Coinbase UK received pressure from one of their banking partners and delisted Zcash as an example. And so if the real goal of any system of money is to be the most useful to the most people, because nobody wants money that nobody wants, then those are really sticky issues. And the other issue, back to Monero, and I have great respect for Monero, and many people from our community were in the very early days of Monero, and still to this day, there's quite a bit of cross-pollination between the two projects. Excuse me one second.
So I'll read a couple comments here. Frodo says, try sending PayPal across the border and see how long it'll take you to get your money. Yeah, true. I'm I'm making the layman's case. Like, if the layman is going to switch, like, the layman isn't going to go through the insane trouble of switching to crypto to go across the border if PayPal can work, as long as they do it in a responsible, non-shady way. But, you know, if they need to move money, if they have a reason to have, that's what I'm saying. It's a distinction without a difference. No, that's not true.
Well, hold on. Let me
talk.
Yes.
So, like, if I want to move money across a border that the government would disapprove of, then Bitcoin is just one step away from not helpful. Because, yeah, I may have the control to move that coin, but then they can come throw me in a cage for it because they can watch it happen. That's what I'm saying. Like, if we're going to need to move money across a border, then the crypto needs to be private, and it needs to be NSA private. That was my point. Go ahead.
Yeah, so specifically about PayPal, I have a friend in Brazil, and I sent not a lot. I think it was $250. And PayPal asked for why this person was receiving the money, all kinds of additional documents. They ended up holding it for 60 days and only releasing it under threat of legal action. And these are not isolated instances. And so with Epic, it's 1 minute. Nobody can stop you. It's private enough unless you want to hide from, again, the NSA, in which case I wouldn't recommend it. Monero is probably better.
No. My point is, who else would you want to hide from? Like,
I would want to hide from Amazon or Microsoft or Google.
Amazon
or
runs the NSA
Twitter.
servers. Like, why couldn't they do the same analytics that the NSA could?
Because they are a contractor providing the physical infrastructure. They don't get access to the data to use on a commercial basis, or maybe at least not yet, until we have complete fascism in this country.
True.
So I think it's a crucial distinction. And again, let's say I buy something that is disapproved of, and then somebody later comes and says, well, hey, look, you bought this particular form of adult content when you stayed at this hotel on a business trip, or whatever. I think that the commercial aspect is really not just the more important one in the grand scheme of things for most people, but also the more tractable one, because as much as we might be frustrated living under the long eye of the Chinese Communist Party or whoever here in our country, most of our interactions are with big companies that nickel and dime us to death, and also compromise our data. Another reason not to use centralized exchange services is that they get compromised. Binance's KYC provider got hacked, and a bunch of their customers' identity documents got leaked, or Experian's 150 million customers' information ending up on the dark web, or Target, or you name it. Centralized infrastructure is just not safe. And so if you interact directly with the blockchain and you hold your own keys, then you have a greater degree of sovereignty. And the other thing is that not today, but later this year, you'll be able to mine Epic on your cell phone. The other reason, or one of the reasons that I'm so bullish on it, is that with BTC, there's a tremendous environmental footprint and e-waste problem that is generated, because you have these $4,000 Antminer ASIC computers that have to be thrown away after 24 months, whereas Epic uses a multiple algorithm design targeting different silicon types, and the different algorithms are targeted, for example, toward an old laptop or a graphics card today, all the way up to a server farm, and they don't compete. But then once a few technical things happen, then 5.2 billion people that have a basic smartphone will be able to participate in the mining process and add security and decentralization and censorship resistance and all that good stuff. So the way we approached the design, and Epic didn't launch until September 2019, but a lot of the ideas first started coming together all the way back in 2017. The thought process was, if Satoshi had access to the types of technologies that exist on the shelf today, knowing what we know now, how would it be designed? And the answers became clear and fairly obvious. The answer is, you wouldn't entrench a new oligarchy or priesthood in the form of the mining hardware manufacturers. You wouldn't consciously centralize the mining in certain provinces in China. You wouldn't move the network in these certain directions that it had. And so I came very late to the Bitcoin party. I wasn't smart enough to see the potential until fairly late. And so the idea to wind the clock back and go back in time to 2010, the asset is still only $1. 11 months ago, it was a penny. Now it's $1. The supply is the same. The scarcity is the same. The store of value narrative is precisely the same, but it's more accessible, which drives the network effects. It's more inclusive, and it's more censorship resistant, more trustless, more decentralized. All the things that make Bitcoin wonderful. This asset has more of those than BTC does today.
Yeah, I personally think BTC is easy to beat from a technological standpoint. It's version 1, and the most iteration they've done is try to bolt on Lightning Network. And the first time I tried to use that, and I'm not a layman, I lost my first deposit. It wasn't much. It was $20 to test, but it just became inaccessible. And so, I mean, hopefully they've iterated on it since then. But yeah, I've had very little luck with that.
Well, what a lot of people don't know is that Lightning is not actually technically Bitcoin. You're eroding the security guarantees that make Bitcoin special, and at that point, you are really dealing. I think you're better off dealing with a PayPal or a Venmo. There's all kinds of intractable problems. Lightning is supposedly 2 years away, but it's always been 2 years away. And if you want, I'm happy to send you some quite a bit of comprehensive research through Telegram offline that you can post in the YouTube links or whatever, where it's just not going to work. And every so-called deep maxi or maximalist that I talk to and argue about this, and I do quite a bit, it ends up kind of at the mic drop level of discussion, where it always ends up resting on, well, the smartest minds in the world are working on it, and I'm confident that we will find a solution in time. Okay, that's great. I'm going to use this other one here today. There's a whole bunch of use cases that you can do with this type of network that you just can't do with any other type of network structure. And so the way I like to look at it is that if BTC is a 3G cell phone connection, you can do phone calls and maybe some limited things. You can do 5.5 transactions a second and do a 1 megabyte block in a 10-minute cadence. But on a 4G structure, then you start getting into things like apps and mobile video and all kinds of things like that. And BTC came out in 2009. Epic came out in 2019. And Monero, as a 2014 vintage project, neatly splits it in the middle. So what comes in 2024 to dethrone Epic, I don't know. But having successfully navigated dozens, if not hundreds, of these early stage networks and seeing how they unfold, there's just nothing else like there, at least for me, and what I'm trying to achieve with the role of crypto in my financial landscape personally, that can do what this one does. And the best part is that it does it today. It's pumped out 800,000 blocks every minute since September 2019. Like BTC, it's no ICO, no pre-mine, not a token. There's no company involved. I, along with about 100 others around the world, am just a community volunteer. I'm an individual who donates his time to help develop and maintain this, and through stuff like this, spread the word and hopefully bring others in. But if 1 million people a day use BTC currently, which is about the figure, if we can take that to 10 million through things like mobile mining and reducing the barriers to entry for people to come in, then it could really pick up where BTC leaves off. I had a friend mention to me the other day that BTC stands for Bankster Trader Coin, which I found kind of amusing.
Well, hang on. But yeah, so a lot of people in the comments have been talking about how institutionalized BTC is getting. Isn't Dash going down the same road, trying to get big banks and stuff like that involved with them?
Yeah, well, Dash is a company. I mean, they have to do what they need to do to make money for their investors. There is no Epic or Epicenter company. It's just a pure protocol, and there's a lot of people building business models around it, just like you have Blockstream and Bitmain and Chaincode and Chainalysis and DCG and Coinbase and Binance and all the other ones that have staked their claim around the V1. But here it's really more grassroots. There's a website called epicfundme.com where one of the Anarchapulco attendees actually is doing a fundraiser for a local orphanage and raising some money to do what he wants. It's humble. It's more of a proof of concept. But if you're impacted by censorship or cancel culture, deplatforming, Patreon will turn off your account if they don't like what you have to say, or really they don't even need a reason. They just say terms of service, your account is shut off, and then you're disconnected.
My platform was shadow banned from Patreon, so we left them. Yeah.
Exactly, and so we can make noise and be angry about this and have steam come off our heads in the corner, or we can do something about it. And for me, it comes down to, if you want to take away the power of people over you to use your financial resources in a way that's not consistent with your personal philosophy and values, whatever those happen to be, you can get angry or you can get even and do something about it. And the beautiful part is that all you have to do is make a choice that you're going to use a non-coercive, non-violence-based form of currency, like an Epic or even a BTC, as long as it's a true cryptocurrency and not some VC pump and dump project that's designed to just get people in and take their money. And I won't name any specific names, but every few years people come in and, hey, I have a great idea. I'm going to get rich in crypto overnight. Everything old is new again, and this is really a pure effort based on strong motivating principles that a lot of people find attractive, and that's why they, like me, volunteer their resources to the cause.
Justin Anarchist says, I want to hide from everyone. My money is no one else's business. Professor Jacobson Pimp asks, question, what does Murray think about Digibyte? I don't know what Digibyte is. If you know what that is, can you tell us what it is and then tell us what you think about it?
Yeah, I love Digibyte. Great question. If you want to ping me on Telegram, Murray R. Freeman, after we can discuss how we're looking at using their blockchain and their DigiID service for decentralized identity and single sign-on authentication and other good stuff. But Digibyte is another example of a great community project that they had a small pre-mine for some funding, but aside from that, they did no ICO, and the core team put up their own money, as far as I recall, to make it work. And they've been fairly innovative, bringing in things like the multi-algo proof of work approach that we use. They use Dandelion++, which is another privacy technology that we use. So I'm a huge fan of Digibyte, and that's one of about half a dozen or so other grassroots community projects that we're finding ways to reach across the aisle and partner with in some way that's mutually reinforcing to both of our missions. Incidentally, speaking to the prior point about wanting to hide from everyone, I don't think that's unreasonable. I think it's just unrealistic given the technologies today, because software is so complex. There's backdoors inside of backdoors inside of hidden things that you need advanced math degrees to even understand what the issues are, much less what to do about them. So I think it's a spy versus spy game of those who would control and those who would prefer to be free. And as technology shifts, one side gets the upper hand from time to time. I think we're at a particularly pivotal point for the future of our species, because with blockchain, AI totalitarianism is forever. And in China, we're starting to see that if you use forbidden words, not only is access to your money turned off, but you can't ride the bus. You can't enroll your children in school. It's the ultimate Felix Dzerzhinsky, I'm sure I'm slaughtering that name, NKVD or KGB or East German Stasi, worst excesses of the most totalitarian regimes that we've ever seen. And so I think it's a crucial point. And if we want to preserve what's left of our shredded liberties, we should probably think about preserving them. And there's a reason in my mind that the First Amendment is occupying its place of primacy in our Bill of Rights, even above the Second Amendment, which is the right to defend ourselves. Because if we're unable to speak, if we're able to be censored, then none of your other rights are really valuable. And similarly, if your monetary rights are infringed and the value of the purchasing power of the dollar has gone down over 97% when measured against gold since 1913, if your wealth can be stolen and your access to your money can be turned off, then similarly, all of the other rights, theoretical or actual, don't mean quite so much. And so these are pivotally important issues in a time where we have not a virus crisis. What we have is a crisis in response to the response to this virus. To use a Jeff Berwick phrase, I think I heard him mention the other day that it was a controlled demolition of the American empire. And so that anything outside the scope of the monetary is really outside my purview. But I think these are important questions that are timely now about just why we are putting hundreds of millions, if not a couple billion people to despair and even death, far in excess of the consequences of the stated reason for whatever's going on. It reminds me back after 9/11 when you had a certain number of people die in the event. Okay, it's a tragedy. But then when you turn off air travel for 2 weeks and then people take those trips by road, the death rate goes up by 7 times or whatever the number was. And so if our goal is to save lives, great, let's do that, but let's at least be rational about it. Anyway, I prefer to focus more on the money stuff, but I think if we don't ignore, or if we don't pay attention to these things now, we may wake up and realize that our options have been considerably narrowed.
Okay, so one of the viewers had what he thinks he understands what you're trying to say. He says, Frodo says, I think he's trying to say that BTC is not Bitcoin. Its DNA has become mutated, and Epic Cash is more Bitcoin than BTC. Is that your point? And if so, in what, like, give me the top way, the number one way you think Epic is more Bitcoin than BTC, and is the way you're about to tell me the same way that Bitcoin Cash is different?
Yeah, so if I had to pick one, let me think of it. I would say censorship resistance is the big one. When you have transparent addresses and transparent amounts, like both Bitcoin Cash and BTC do, because after all, BTC is a code fork or is a fork of BTC, then you can do that. So with Epic, the only people that can see anything about your transaction, I mean, excepting of course 3-letter agencies, who can see that you transacted and probably figure out with whom, but they can't know the amount, and nobody else can see because the amounts and the addresses are not transparent on chain. And so with censorship resistance, no mining pool, no node operator, no centralized exchange provider, no one can stand in the way of you being able to transact with another party. And so Epic is really unstoppable money in a way that legacy blockchain structures that have transparency to everyone, like BTC and Bitcoin Cash, BCH do.
3Lita, who's been pretty pro Epic in the comments the whole time, says, practical tip, clean up your garage and do a garage sale. With the money you make, buy some Epic Cash. Your money will go further than with BTC or XMR. That is a very specific claim. If I did a garage sale, got some money together, and I bought Epic instead of BTC or XMR, how is that money going to go further?
So the current market cap of Monero, I haven't checked lately, but I think it's around 2 or 3 billion. The market cap of BTC is almost a trillion at this point. I think maybe 800-900, somewhere around there. The entire market capitalization of the entire network of 10.6 million coins is only around $5 million, 5 to 10. Let's say it's small and illiquid, so it fluctuates. But so for someone to earn, we get spoiled in crypto. Let's just say 10 times your money in Monero, it needs to generate an additional 18 billion in market value. The corresponding figure in Epic is 50 or 100 million, which would place it at, I don't know, number 500 and something, maybe on the list of 5,000 coins. So ultimately, while I and looks like some of the viewers believe that Epic is a better Bitcoin, and I believe time will tell that it is, it's unequivocally a better Litecoin, which based on the number of coins in existence, if you normalize it kind of like a price per square foot basis, if you were evaluating real estate, that pencils it out to about $1,200 a coin, and they're currently trading at 50 cents to a dollar. If you look at assets from the prior bull cycles like Verge or Nano back at the end of 2017 into 2018, when the market recognized what they were and the value that those networks offered, regardless of what happened after, if the stars aligned for you in that period, I think Verge went up 67,000%, something like that. It was one of the largest winners in any asset class, certainly within crypto, of all time. And so usually new protocols, certainly ones of any true utility, they can easily take tens of millions, hundreds of millions, if not even billions to create. EOS raised 4.1 billion in investor capital in 2017, 2018 to generate a market value of currently about the same amount. So that hasn't been very successful for investors. And so here, with a no ICO, no pre-mine, pure proof of work model, buying directly from the miners who produced it, it's just a greater ROI potential for a minimal cost. So what I usually tell people, and by the way, we do have a tradition of giving. So if somebody wants some, they can ping somebody from within the community. Just it's Epic Cash on Telegram. Friendly volunteers are there all the time. Anybody who installs a wallet can have one basically on a pay it forward kind of a thing, is that let's say I'm crazy and I'm just completely wrong, and you have one that you paid $1 for. Okay, you lost $1. But what if it isn't so crazy and one of these things ends up being tens of thousands of dollars, or even quite a bit more than BTC, which is my personal expectation and prognostication. I've even bet some of my deep Bitcoin maximalist friends on this. Hey, check back later. And I think the numbers prove out. If you look at the history of BTC, it goes not in a linear fashion like old economy phenomena. It's an exponential phenomena where it goes from $1 to $10 to $100 to 1,000 to 10,000, and then the next stop is not 20, but is an order of magnitude leap higher, as we're experiencing now, up to 100,000 and beyond, unless something stops that. And in BTC, you have this negative feedback loop of high fees because of the constrained block space of 1 megabyte on layer 1. Whereas here, if Epic is $100,000, it'll still be pennies to send and will be cost effective. And so for me, it's different tools for different jobs. There's lots of blockchains that do lots of wonderful things. Epic is trying to be a pure currency like BTC, Bitcoin Cash, Litecoin to a lesser extent, BSV. And so if we're at dinner and there's a steak knife and a butter knife, both of those can cut through a stick of butter. But when you get to the steak, only one tool can do the job. And so both of these assets have the exact same scarcity profile with the 21 million coins and the 4-year disinflationary halvings, but only one can serve as a medium of exchange, and that's Epic. And that's even before getting into the broader issues. I know we're pressed for time, so go ahead.
No. I think there's a guy in chat called Audio Video Tweaker, I think, he actually thinks I've been going easy on you, which is kind of hilarious because I think you'd agree I have not been. But maybe you have a little bias showing, sir. He wants me to take a question that challenges you.
Sure, let's do it.
As if I haven't already. So his question is, where is Epic Cash accepted? Outside of exchanges, of course, which I think might be a valid point.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll give you an example of some of the use cases. So first of all, there's 200 currently individual causes, people, businesses, services that have gone to epicfundme.com and said, I will do this if you send me some Epic. Now, that's mostly philanthropic in this case, but that shows its utility as a direct P2P medium of exchange. The thing that isn't out yet that is coming is an integrated stablecoin concept called EUSD, in which case an EUSD token, which will trade on not just Ethereum, but also its 30 plus smart contract platform competitors, such as Binance Smart Chain or Huobi EcoChain or Solana or Polkadot or Cardano or EOS, literally all of them, is one EUSD, just like a pre-1971 Federal Reserve note, was redeemable for 1/35th of an ounce of physical gold. You can take that one EUSD, let's say if you are a merchant and you received it in the course of trade in your ice cream shop or hot dog cart or whatever, and you present that token to the smart contract on that blockchain, and you receive $1 worth of Epic Cash at the current price. So you're insulated from the price volatility.
The question was, where is Epic accepted?
Yeah. So right now, it's entirely P2P and individual merchants that are deciding to use it in their business. You can get spinal injections in Miami. You can buy art anonymously through a guy that's running Keybase auctions. There's people at Float Fest that are selling some things for Epic. And so the way the crypto game works is you have to pay to play. If you have enough money, you can buy your way onto the exchanges. And as a community project, there are simply no resources for that because we didn't raise investor money. And so the merchant acceptance is something that will take time and is happening. But again, it's only a little over a year old. And so it takes time, especially in the absence of a formal marketing budget, like other payment services, to have the voice be heard. And that's part of why I'm here spending some time with you today. And by the way, I'm a willing victim. I wouldn't want to know if this is easy or not. But you've certainly kept me on my toes here today, Patrick.
Good, man. Okay, so do you have any last words? We have about 3 minutes left. Where can people find you, and where would you like to send people to contact you if they have questions?
Yeah, so the Telegram group Epic Cash is the best place to start. I would really recommend that people get involved in mining rather than buying it. There's also an initiative called Freeman University, or Free U, where if you'll invest your time to learn about crypto and blockchain and financial education, not just specifically anything about Epic, then you can earn some nominal amounts. But the point is to get people brought onto the network, which is kind of like how the early days of Bitcoin started, was people giving it out person to person. And so epic.tech has a white paper if people are interested.
Last question to you. What is the best way to get Epic Cash? Asks Take the Ride 23. Is there an exchange you'd recommend?
Yeah, so there's a decentralized exchange or a DEX called Vitex. It's at VITE or Vite.net. The app on the App or Play Store is the Vite wallet. It's a DEX. You hold your keys. They don't ask for any identity documents, and they don't really care or seem to care anyway where you're from. And so you can buy with any other crypto on there. I'll send you a link through Telegram, and you can include it in the show notes. There's a short YouTube video that outlines the different steps.
All right, sir. Thank you very much for coming on the show. I have enjoyed attempting to challenge you. I hope I can't imagine that anyone would call this me going easy on you. Maybe they were watching a different stream, but I have enjoyed the conversation. Thanks for standing up and allowing yourself to be challenged, and for speaking for what you think is useful and good in the world. I appreciate you, sir.
I'm going to go ice my head after this boxing match. Thank you, sir.
All right. Have a good one. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes our dinner time slot for the Anarchapulco event. Thank you guys for watching. I have enjoyed hanging out. Thank you guys all in the comments for providing challenging questions to help interact with the guests today. Tomorrow at 1 p.m. Central, we will again have some Meet the Speaker interviews where we'll take your questions and challenge the speakers and find out what they have to say about things. And then again in the evening, we have a big debate for you. 5 p.m., we have to get going, so I'll say this quick. 5 p.m., vaccination debate, Dr. Ben Tapper and Isaac Lindenberger here. Don't miss it. Thanks, guys. Peace, love, and anarchy.